I never meant to take him seriously. The words hung in the air between us like something fragile, something I could either catch or let fall. But when I showed up at his door the next morning with a suitcase, I realized I had stopped knowing the difference between courage and desperation. My name is Molly James. I am 29 years old, and until last week, I lived in a glass tower where silence cost more than most people's mortgages. It is the kind of place where you can see the whole city but feel like you are watching life happen to someone else. The penthouse belonged to me, or at least the bank thought so. Marble counters, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the harbor that real estate agents called breathtaking. But breath was exactly what I could not catch up there. 14 floors above the world, and I could not remember the last time I felt the ground beneath my feet. I made my money the way people do when they stop asking if it is worth it. Mergers, acquisitions, turning companies inside out and calling it optimization. 80-hour weeks that bled into weekends. A corner office with my name on the door and an assistant who knew my coffee order better than my own mother did. My parents retired to Arizona 3 years ago. We exchanged holiday cards. My older brother moved to Singapore for work and forgot to send his new address. The last real relationship I had ended when he said he felt like he was dadding my voicemail. I still have his old Princeton sweatshirt in a box. Some lessons take longer to learn. Most nights I ordered in whatever showed up first on the app and fell asleep in my clothes on top of the duvet. The apartment felt bigger when it was empty. But empty was predictable, safe, or at least it was. Everything changed on a Thursday night in late October. Rain hammered the windows so hard it sounded like the sky was trying to break through. I was staring at a contract I had read 6 times without absorbing a single word when water started pooling behind my sofa. Dark, spreading, unstoppable. I called the building manager. He gave me a number for an emergency plumber. A man answered on the 3rd ring, voice rough with sleep. He said his name was Christian Stewart and he would be there in 20. His voice was warm, easy, like he was used to fixing things that broke at inconvenient times. It was almost 10 at night and the rain was vicious. But there was something in the way he said, "I got you," that made me believe him. Christian Stewart arrived soaked, carrying a toolbox that looked older than both of us. He was younger than I expected, maybe mid-20s, with dark hair plastered to his forehead and paint-stained work boots that left wet prints on my marble floor. He did not wait for small talk. He went straight to the leak, dropped to his knees, and disappeared behind my furniture like he had been here 100 times before. I sat at the kitchen island pretending to work while he moved through my space with a quiet confidence that felt foreign in a place where everyone rushed. When he finished, the dripping stopped and the apartment went silent again. Too silent. He stood, wiping his hands on his jeans, and told me the pipe was older than it should be, but it would hold for now. I thanked him and said I would transfer the payment. Then he looked around my apartment, really looked, and said something that cut deeper than he probably meant it to. "This place is beautiful," he said, "but it feels like nobody lives here." I should have been offended. Instead, I laughed, short and tired, and said, "That is because nobody does." The rain hit harder, and I do not know why I said what I said next. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was a person instead of a client. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe I just wanted to hear my own voice say something true. "I signed the divorce papers last week," I said. "He kept the dog." Christian did not flinch. He just nodded like that explained everything. Then, so casually I almost missed it, he said, "Well, if you ever need to get away from all this glass, my place has a porch that creaks and a guest room that is probably smaller than your closet. But it is quiet, real quiet." He smiled after, easy and warm, to make sure I knew it was a joke. I did not smile back. I just looked at him and filed the thought away like a document I might need later. He left, and I sat in my perfect apartment listening to the rain and feeling like I had just been handed a key I did not know what to do with. By the time I went to bed, I had convinced myself it meant nothing. The next morning, I woke up at 5 and could not fall back asleep. The apartment pressed in on me. The walls, the silence, the smell of expensive candles that could not cover up the emptiness. I kept thinking about what Christian had said, about quiet, about real. I got dressed before I could change my mind. Jeans, a sweater I had not worn in 2 years, sneakers instead of heels. I threw a few things into the same black suitcase I used for work trips and called a car. His address was still in my phone from the invoice. The rain had slowed to a drizzle by the time I arrived. The house was small, blue paint faded, porch wood weathered and honest. It looked like it had been there long before the skyscrapers went up and would be there long after they came down. I stood on the porch for a full minute before I knocked. My heart hammered. My hands shook. The door opened and Christian stood there barefoot, hair messy, eyes wide with confusion. He looked at me, then at the suitcase, then back at me. "Your offer," I said, gripping the handle so tight my knuckles went white. "Is it still good?" For a long second, neither of us moved. Rain dripped from the porch roof onto the wooden steps. His eyes searched my face like he was trying to figure out if this was real. Then he stepped aside. "Come in," he said softly, "before you catch pneumonia." I crossed the threshold and the floor groaned under my feet. He closed the door behind me and flipped on a light. The kitchen was small and lived in. Take-out boxes on the counter, a dent in the couch, a single framed photo of an older man and a younger version of Christian by a lake. It was the opposite of everything I had built, and I could breathe. "I can pay rent," I said, pulling an envelope from my coat. 3 weeks. Cash. He stared at the envelope like it might bite him. "You do not have to do that. I placed it on the counter anyway. I am not here for charity." He nodded slowly, still looking stunned. "Okay, guest room is down the hall. It is basic." "That is exactly what I need," I said. I picked up my suitcase and walked down the hallway, my heels clicking softly on the old wood. I closed the door and sat on the edge of the bed. The room smelled like cedar and old books. I could hear the rain outside, softer now, gentler. I lay back and closed my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt like I could finally stop running. That first week. We moved around each other like dancers learning a new rhythm. He left early for work, fixing pipes and clearing drains in houses that had stood longer than either of us. I stayed in the guest room mostly, staring at my laptop, deleting emails from the firm, trying to remember who I was before I became what they needed. But I could not sit still for long. I started cooking. Real cooking, not ordering in. I made things I remembered from childhood. Chicken and rice, lasagna, a steak that I seasoned with hands that had only ever signed contracts. I left the plates on the stove covered in foil. No notes. I did not know what to say. Christian never asked questions. He just ate what I made and left the dishes clean in the morning. I found myself listening for his truck in the driveway, the sound of his boots on the porch. I wore his old flannel shirts because everything I owned required dry cleaning, and that life felt 1,000 miles away. Without the suits, without the meetings, I felt smaller, more real. We exchanged polite words in the hallway. "Good morning. Thanks for dinner. The weather is changing, nothing more, but I noticed things. The way he hummed while he worked. The careful way he closed doors so they would not slam. How he always left the porch light on, even when he went to bed, like he was making sure I could find my way home. One morning, I woke up early and cleaned. Not because it was dirty, but because it helped me think. I organized the bills on the counter, scrubbed the sink until it shined, stocked the fridge with groceries I bought from the corner market. Real groceries. Eggs, apples, the beer he liked. That night, he knocked on my door. I opened it just a crack, suddenly nervous. "You do not have to clean up after me," he said. "I know," I replied. "It helps me think." He nodded. Then, before he could leave, he said, "The flannel looks good on you." I glanced down, feeling my cheeks warm. It was in the dryer. "Keep it," he said. The door closed gently between us. I stood there listening to the rain, smiling at nothing. The second week, the walls between us started to come down. I cooked dinner one evening and he came home to the smell of garlic and rosemary. I was at the stove using his grandmother's old pan, sleeves rolled up, hair curling from the steam. "Hope you are hungry," I said without turning around. "I made too much." "I always am." We ate at the table. Real plates, cloth napkins. The food was warm and simple and perfect. We did not talk much, but it did not feel empty. It felt comfortable. After dinner, I washed and he dried. Our hands brushed over a plate. Neither of us pulled away. "You hum when you work," he said. I froze. "You noticed?" "Yeah, it is nice." I laughed, surprised at how much that meant. I have not done that in years. That night I heard him moving around in the living room, the soft sound of him settling onto the couch. I lay in the guest room with the door cracked open, listening to the house breathe around us. By the third week, I stopped thinking of this as temporary. I fixed the crooked shelf in the hallway because it bothered me. Christian found me on my knees with his toolbox, hair tied back with one of his bandanas. "You did not have to do that," he said. "It was crooked." He watched me work, and I felt his eyes on me like warmth. This was not the woman who ran board meetings. This was someone I was just starting to meet. That night, he knocked on my door again. "Why did you really come here?" he asked. "You could have gone anywhere." I looked at him for a long time. "Because you saw me. Not my job, not my address, not my last name, just me." "And who are you now?" he asked quietly. I smiled, unsure and hopeful. Still figuring that out. The 3 weeks passed and neither of us mentioned them. The envelope stayed on the counter, untouched. The guest room door stayed open. Small changes happened without discussion. His jacket appeared on my shoulders during our walks. My coffee cup found a spot next to his in the cabinet. I did not know it then, but something had already shifted, and neither of us knew how to stop it. Somewhere between Thanksgiving and the first real frost, I stopped pretending this was temporary. It happened in small moments. His hand on my back as I reached for something in the cabinet. The way he said my name, soft and certain like he had been saying it his whole life. My books spread across his coffee table, his tools making space for my laptop. One night I came downstairs to find him fixing the old living room lamp, the one that flickered like it was trying to send Morse code. "Fire hazard," he said, clicking it on. The light stayed steady. "Much better." I watched him pack the tools away, hands confident and gentle. He had paint under his nails and sawdust in his hair, and he looked more real than anyone I had ever known. That night we ate shepherd's pie and watched an old movie. He laughed, really laughed, and I realized I was laughing too. Free and easy and new. "Welcome to the simple life," he joked. "It is not so bad," I said. We started taking walks by the harbor. Slow ones with no destination. I wore his jacket with the sleeves too long. We did not hold hands at first, but our arms brushed, fingers grazing like accidents that were not accidents at all. One night, sitting on a bench near the old pier, I told him about my marriage. The perfect photos that hid the emptiness. The promotion that cost me everything. The moment I realized I had built a life I did not want. He told me about his grandfather, the house, the ex who left because potential was not enough. We did not cry. We just sat together and let the truth settle between us. The house kept changing. The hallway rug straightened. The kitchen fan repaired together, me holding the ladder while he worked. Our shoulders touched. Neither of us moved away. Then the call came. I was making coffee when my phone rang. A number I recognized. The senior partner. I let it go to voicemail. Then another, and another. When Christian got home that evening, I was packing by the window, phone pressed to my ear, using the voice I thought I had left behind. When I hung up, I stood staring at the harbor like it might have answers. "They want me back," I said. "Full partner, my own division, everything I worked for." He nodded, face carefully neutral. "What do you want?" I did not answer because I did not know. That night I lay beside him on the couch, but I faced away, my mind racing through numbers and titles and everything I had given up. I left before he woke up. I drove to the city, to my old building, sat in the parking garage and stared at the entrance. I made it as far as the lobby before I turned around. When I got back to the house, the lights were off. Christian sat on the porch steps, waiting. "They offered me everything," I said, sitting beside him. "Money, control, my name on the door." And I told them I needed time. We drank beers in the cold. Finally. He asked, "If you leave, will I lose you?" I thought about the silence, the empty penthouse, the person I used to be. "If I leave, I will lose myself." He smiled, sad and understanding. "Then stay." But I could not answer, not yet. I went inside and started packing. He helped without a word, folding the flannels I had claimed, zipping the suitcase. Every movement felt wrong. At the door, I turned back. "If I come back," I asked, "will you still be here?" "Where else would I go?" I nodded and walked to my car. I drove to the city one more time. I walked into the building, took the elevator to the 14th floor and stood in my empty penthouse. It was exactly as I left it. Beautiful, cold, silent. I looked around at everything I thought I wanted and felt nothing. I turned around and drove back. It was almost dawn when I pulled into his driveway. Christian was on the porch, still awake, still waiting. I got out fast this time, no heels, no second thoughts. "I could not do it," I said. "I chose this, I chose you." He stood frozen until I was right in front of him. "I do not know how to do perfect," I said, "but I know how to stay." He wrapped his arms around me and I leaned in fully, finally home. The house settled around us. The porch light hummed. The harbor kept moving, and nothing felt uncertain anymore. I did not unpack right away. The suitcase sat in the hallway for days, half open, like proof that staying was still a choice I made every morning. Christian did not rush me. We had learned that some things break when you touch them too soon. Life became something quiet and real. Mornings started with coffee on the porch. I burned toast. He burned eggs. We laughed like it mattered. The town noticed. Mrs. Chen at the corner store raised an eyebrow when she saw us together. "That girl's still staying with you, Christian." "She is," he said, squeezing my hand. "That is not what I asked." He smiled. I know. The firm kept calling. I deleted most emails without reading them. Some days I opened them, sighed, and closed my laptop. I started sketching again. Designs for furniture, small renovations, things that did not need approval or profit margins. We fixed the porch together in early spring. New boards, fresh paint. The creek softened into something musical. On the last evening, we sat on the steps, hands wrapped around mugs of tea, watching the harbor lights come on one by one. I used to think staying meant settling, I said quietly. And now, he asked. Now I think leaving was. We never talked about forever. We just kept choosing each other. His jacket on my shoulders, my books on his table, his tools in the corner I cleared space for. Some nights I hummed while cooking. Some nights he listened from the doorway and smiled. Some mornings I rested my head on his shoulder while he drank coffee. We fit without forcing. The suitcase disappeared one day. I did not see myself unpack it. It was just gone. In its place was a drawer full of sweaters and a bathroom counter suddenly too small for two. The house felt full. Not loud, not perfect. Just lived in. On the porch, the light stayed on. And 6 months later, on a Tuesday morning while Christian was at work, I found something I was not looking for. A small box in the back of his closet while hanging up laundry. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were letters. Dozens of them, all addressed to Molly James at my penthouse address. All from Christian Stewart. Dated over the past 2 years. My breath caught. 2 years before the leak. Before that rainy October night. Before I ever heard his name. I pulled out the first letter with shaking hands. The paper was worn, folded, and refolded like it had been read 100 times. Dear Ms. James, you do not know me, but I know you. Not personally. I am the superintendent's son at Southbound Towers. I work maintenance sometimes when he needs help. I have seen you in the lobby, in the elevator, always moving fast, always alone. 3 months ago, you held the elevator door for me when I was carrying tools. You smiled and asked if I needed help. It was brief, forgettable for you probably. But I had just lost my grandfather that morning, and your kindness, small as it was, made me feel human again. I wanted to thank you, but you were gone before I could speak. So I am writing this letter I will never send. Christian, I pulled out another, then another. Each one a moment I did not remember. Me buying coffee for the doorman on a cold morning. Me asking after the cleaning lady's daughter who was sick. Me leaving a generous tip for the maintenance crew at Christmas. Small things. Forgotten things, but Christian had collected them like treasures. The letters progressed over 2 years. His grandfather's death. Inheriting the house. Leaving his job at the tower to start his own plumbing business. And in every letter he mentioned me. A woman he admired from a distance. A woman who had no idea he existed. The last letter was dated 3 days before the leak in my apartment. Dear Molly, I hope you do not mind the familiarity. I learned something yesterday that made my hands shake so badly I had to sit down. Your husband filed for divorce. The paperwork came through the building office. I know I should not have seen it, but I did. And my first thought, the one I am most ashamed of, was hope. I know how that sounds. I am not proud of it. But I have been watching you disappear into that apartment for 2 years now, becoming smaller, quieter, like you are trying to take up less space in your own life. I have wanted to reach out 1,000 times, but what would I say? How would I explain that a stranger has been carrying you in his thoughts like a prayer? The building's pipes are old. The superintendent mentioned your unit is next in line for a problem. I could fix it before it happens. Or I could wait. Wait for you to need help. Wait for an excuse to finally speak to you. I do not know what I will do. I just know I cannot watch you fade anymore without trying to offer you something real. Even if it is just a conversation. Even if it is just one night where you remember what it feels like to be seen. Yours in ways you will never know. Christian, the letters fell from my hands. The leak. The convenient timing. The casual offer to stay at his house. It was not random. None of it was random. He had orchestrated our meeting. And I had walked right into it, believing it was fate or chance or my own brave decision. I heard his truck in the driveway. My heart pounded. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me wanted to scream. But another part of me, the part that had learned to breathe again in this house, wanted to understand. The door opened. Christian walked in, smiling when he saw me, then freezing when he saw the letters scattered on the floor. The color drained from his face. Molly, he said, voice breaking. I can explain. I stood up, hands shaking. 2 years. You've been watching me for 2 years. Not watching, never like that, I noticed you and I could not stop. The leak, you said the pipes were old. His face crumpled. I did not cause it, I swear I did not cause it, but I knew it was coming and I waited for you to call. I am so sorry. You manipulated me into coming here. No. He stepped forward, hands raised like he was approaching something fragile. I gave you a choice, an option. I never forced anything. You came here on your own. Because you made me think it was my idea. Tears burned my eyes. You made me think I was being brave when really I was just following a script you wrote. It was not like that. His voice broke completely. I know how it looks. I know I should have told you. But Molly, everything that happened after you walked through that door, that was real, this. I fell in love with who you are, not who I thought you were from a distance. How am I supposed to believe anything you say? I was crying now, angry and hurt and confused. How do I know any of this was real? He pulled something from his pocket, another envelope, unsealed. I wrote this last night, he said quietly. I was going to give it to you this morning before you found the others. I took it with trembling hands and pulled out a single page. Molly, I have been lying to you since the moment we met. Not about my feelings. Those are the only true thing I have ever given you, but about how we met. It was not an accident. I had been waiting for a reason to knock on your door for 2 years. You deserved to know that from the beginning, and I was too afraid you would leave if you knew the truth. That a stranger had been collecting moments of you like stolen photographs. That I had fallen in love with your kindness before I ever knew your voice. I am telling you now because I cannot keep this secret anymore. Because you deserve honesty more than you deserve my fear. If you leave after reading this, I will understand. I will even help you pack. But I needed you to know that everything after that first night was real. You chose to stay. You chose to cook dinner and fix shelves and wear my clothes and make this house a home. I never manipulated those choices. I just gave you a space where you could make them. I love you. Not the woman I watched from a distance, but the woman who hums while she cooks and argues about the best way to organize tools and falls asleep on the couch with her laptop still open. The real you. The one I am terrified of losing but refuse to keep through lies. I am sorry for how we started, but I am not sorry for where we are. Christian, I read it twice, then a third time. When I looked up, he was watching me with eyes full of fear and love and desperate hope. I do not know if I can forgive this, I said honestly. I know, but I do not want to leave. His breath caught. You do not. No, I wiped my eyes. Because you are right. Everything after that first night I chose. You gave me space to become myself again, and maybe the beginning was wrong, but the middle, the now, this is mine. We built this together. We did, he whispered. But you have to promise me no more secrets, no more letters you do not send. If you have something to say to me, you say it out loud to my face. I promise. I walked to him slowly. I am still angry. You should be. And hurt. I know. But I love you too, the real you, not the phantom letter writer. The man who fixes things and leaves the porch light on and makes me feel like coming home. He pulled me close and I let him. We stood in the kitchen surrounded by scattered letters and broken secrets and something that felt like truth. We are going to burn those, I said, pulling back to look at him. All of them, tonight. Okay. And you are going to tell me everything, every moment you noticed, every thought you had, no more mystery, no more watching from a distance. Yes. And then we are going to start over. Not forget this, but start new from a place of honesty. He smiled, sad and hopeful and completely in love with me. I would like that. That night we sat on the porch with a metal bowl and watched 2 years of letters turn to ash. Christian told me every story, every moment. Some made me laugh, some made me cry. All of them made me see him more clearly. When the last letter burned, I took his hand. Hi, I said. My name is Molly James. I am 29 years old and I am still figuring out who I want to be. He squeezed my hand. Hi, I am Christian Stewart. I am 25 years old and I am terrible at talking to beautiful women, so I write them letters I never send. I laughed through tears. That is really weird. I know, but also kind of romantic. I was hoping you would say that. The porch light hummed above us. The harbor moved in the distance. And we sat together, two people who found each other in the strangest way possible, choosing to stay in the most honest way we knew how. The suitcase never came back out. My name went on the mailbox. His grandmother's ring, small and simple and perfect, found its way onto my finger 6 months later. We never forgot how we started, but we built something true from the broken pieces. And every morning when the coffee pot was half full and the toast was burning, I chose him again. Not because he orchestrated it, but because he gave me space to choose at all. On the porch, our porch, the light stayed on. A beacon for a woman who learned that sometimes coming home means finding someone who saw you before you could see yourself. And sometimes, just sometimes, that is exactly what you need.